Okay, so we're excited again to have another conversation with an Orlando Magic partner, and again, the goal of sharing all the experiences we're all dealing with and helping the sports industry and other brands that are trying to market in this extraordinary time we find ourselves in. You really navigate it together. So I'm super excited and thankful for our dear friend Sharon Line Clary from AdventHealth to join us. Sharon, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
I can't imagine all that's going on, and we all talk about how busy this new environment has made us. But I've got to tip my cap to you all because I know how hard you all are working at AdventHealth.
It's been a little busy over here, as you can imagine. But we, everybody from our physicians to our frontline teams, we have a calling, and we're here for our community, just like the Magic is there for the community. And so we're doing everything we can to keep everybody safe.
And we can't thank you enough for that. Obviously here in Central Florida, but I know colleagues across the nation, same thing. It's amazing. I love that comment there that you have a calling there. It's a special thing. So we typically ask all of our partners to talk about where they are and how they're staying connected to work. It's going to be a little bit different, I think, from your standpoint. Talk to us about that. It looks like you're in the office. And
I'm in the office. I'm in the office majority of the time, but I'm kind of doing a hybrid. So as far as my leadership, I want to be present. Majority of my team, though, is working from home, which is a big shift for us. Yeah. We have, my team is typically spread across the marketplace, and to have people now not in offices or not out in the field is a real difference for us. And we found, though, working from home actually works. So I've got about 95% of my team working from home, and then a portion more on the communication side in the office.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And I feel like leading up to this, we would meet, given the size of our relationship, we meet almost every week. So it's been difficult for us as people, persons, if you will, not to do this. But so give us, maybe take a step back, and for those that don't know you, unpack a little bit your role at AdventHealth.
Yeah, so thanks, JT. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Marketing and Communications. Have been here for 24 years. Previously came in with a sports background, so it's my passion. And I'm excited to have continued my career here at AdventHealth and expanded from sports into full-on healthcare. So I do everything from strategic marketing, physician relations, which is kind of like pharmaceutical sales, corporate sales, partnerships, branding, digital marketing, communications, etc. Kind of a wide portfolio, but all under that marketing and sales and communications umbrella.
Absolutely. So, and talk about, obviously you have a relationship with the Magic, 30 years or so now strong, and we appreciate that. But sports is a big part, to your point, of the AdventHealth strategy. Who else are you working with? What does that partnership portfolio look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Orlando Magic is such a cornerstone property, but we also have some other amazing properties, such as the Bucks in Tampa, the Lightning, NASCAR, Chip Ganassi Sports, Run Disney is another great partner that we do a lot with, Track Shack here locally. So we really span across professional, collegiate, down to amateur, so high schools and little leagues.
No, that's great. We'll talk a little bit more specific on, where you take it now in this disruptive world, but have to ask, right? Everybody's talking about how are you reacting to the pandemic, and you just shared a little bit on how you are in the office, but your team is working remotely. How has that been for you, again, to manage your team? It sounds like it has worked. You said work from home is okay.
Yeah, no, it's been working. Everybody is full on. I think the hardest part is we're all people, you know? We want to be around folks, and we thrive off the energy and the collaboration. And so I think that's a little harder. But we found with technologies such as Zoom and Teams and things like that, it actually works pretty well. And we're actually saving time not being on the road a lot of times.
Good point.
So the balance, or the challenge, I would say, is balancing your time, because you actually can pack more into a day. And so how do you really balance that time? Because days and nights and weeks all kind of start merging together. So we've done a lot of intentional things to A, have fun, B, stay connected, make sure that people are well mentally, because, you know, everyone's in a different place, especially if you have little ones at home.
Yeah, I could speak personally to that. And you've done the Zoom calls, having little guys or girls run into the picture there and interrupting a meeting. But it's yeah, you're right. It does present some pros and cons, and I'm glad that technology has advanced so far that we're able to conduct our business and keep moving forward and do so many important things, especially in your world. So as
Absolutely.
we think about, you know, where we were, right? For me, March 11th, when the NBA shut down, is one of those dates now. As you think about, my gosh, now where do we go from here? I would imagine you have a different answer than most people on, in terms of when it was starting to really resonate in your head that something big is coming related to a disruption of life. Walk me through that. How does that get on your
Yeah.
radar? When would that have been?
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, I remember really it was early March as well. And things started, you know, we were having dialogues and there was conversations, but we started having everyday calls multiple times a day and really talking about what do we need to do to prepare and plan, and not really knowing a lot at that time. It feels like we had a lot of stories coming out of China and then Italy, and not knowing really how it was going to impact us and how fast it was going to impact us. So, you know, I talked about our calling. It's kind of what we do. We're here to care for the community. We've got amazing plans, amazing people, but mobilizing everybody. And really, I think one of the most exciting things that I saw, and that might not be the right word, but, you know, we said, you know, we've got to do everyday work. We've got to still continue to plan and do, you know, our plans that we developed for the year. But we need a team who's just focused in on what we need to do to care for our community and the coronavirus. And so we actually had A and B teams running parallel. And that was a big strategy that I think really enabled us to accelerate.
Yeah. And I'd imagine that requires some folks on staff to step out of their day-to-day, it sounds like. So you shift your role a little bit to react.
Yeah, so I stepped out of my daily role and focused solely on managing what we were going to do as far as communications within, you know, our walls, with our family here at AdventHealth, as well as externally, with media and community partners like the Magic. And then what we were going to do around, you know, our marketing efforts. You know, I don't know that traditional marketing, we were in, you know, that really was the right fit at the time. And so we had to pivot. Consumers were in a different place. And so I was really zeroed in on that. And then I had a team zeroed in on our day in, day out activities.
Gotcha. And how about, I think you look at some of the really powerful moments during the course of this pandemic and, you know, tragedies, I guess we can call this, again, it brings communities closer together. What is the reaction in your office when you see consumers or just residents driving by the hospitals at, you know, planned times and honking horns and drawing in chalk? I think it made us all feel good, but how did it feel on the inside there? Was that received well? Was it expected?
Yeah, I'm not going to do justice talking about this because just the magnitude of how much it impacted our caregivers, our doctors, I just can't tell you enough. I think we really get very focused, and we had a mission to do. And so hearing from the community how much the community supported us, it's invaluable. And you all at the Orlando Magic were one of the first people to reach out and send an amazing video from Alex, as well as the players and the executives. And we can't thank you enough. To this day, people are still talking about that.
Oh man, that's great to hear. No, thank you again. Hats off, Kashia, who, you know, runs day to day on our strategy with your partnership, Kashia Woody.
Fantastic.
Just a conversation stemming from her with then Charlie and Charlie Freeman, Alex Martins, Michael Floyd, our whole senior staff. We're like, how do we not do this? And it was fun. It was fun to bring to the team and to Jeff Weltman and folks in basketball operations. And yeah, you're seeing everybody jump in with 2 feet at something like that, because, you know, we ought to, right? It's amazing what everybody's doing on your end. So,
well, and the outpouring, Shirley, of food, people were, you know, saying, hey, I've got masks, that we use on job sites? Can I donate them? I mean, we had one company who donated fabric and tablecloths to make masks. We found sewers. So it just was amazing how the community, which is what Orlando does, comes together to support each other.
That's great to hear. That's what you expect too, especially in this community. And all the things you had to do to maneuver, with a massive amount of supplies, right, and things that you needed, and thinking about, where can, and even the Amway Center, how can the Amway Center help, AdventHealth kind of operate forward? Does any of that, looking back, surprise you on the measures that had to be gone through and are still being used, I would imagine?
Yeah, no, I think yes and no. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I'm not surprised that we went into planning mode. It's just what we do. It's how we operate, and we plan for every single scenario. So scenario planning is core to who we are. So I'm not surprised at the plans, but I am surprised at just the unique partnerships that came from how could we do this and think about things differently. So the partnership with Amway, for example, to be a hub for all of our PPE and supplies that were coming in from around the world to help support the efforts throughout our company, which, as you know, is our flagships here in Orlando and Central Florida, but we're across 9 different states.
Yeah. And again, not to dig deep into maybe some of the confidential information, but as we think about Central Florida and the restart of Disney and I've been out to Disney Springs, candidly, and I've seen the Advent workers out there. It's just amazing that you've got folks on your team that are out there and willing to be and kind of run towards the issues, right? And to your point, have a calling. And you all play such a big role in the community and making sure we get back to all those things. So I think that's a great message that you're all putting out there.
Yeah, no, we're happy to, and we want to create clarity. And as we were going through this pandemic, and I'm sure you felt this too, there's just so much information out there. And so how do you process it? What's right? It feels like it's changing so fast. So we really early on said, how can we be a calming voice and a trusted source for the right information that's happening right here in Central Florida? Yeah. So that's always been in the back of our minds. And as we've kind of, it's our true north.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And I don't know that I consciously thought about that, but yeah, I've always felt that way. There's so much info out there, and what makes you feel safe, and what better source to get it from, because there's a lot of folks trying to put information out there, but obviously AdventHealth and the role you play in the medical world. So I appreciate it. Again, I feel comfort going to Disney Springs after I've walked through a line of AdventHealth workers, making me feel safe. So I think it's great. How about, so shift to sports, obviously, the main topic and things that we're curious about. Think about the hiatus, as I'm calling it. What have you done to still stay connected to your sports partners?
Yeah, so I mean, we're connecting regularly. So maybe not every day, JT, like we were talking before, but definitely trying to stay connected, especially as sports are coming back, which is super excited. I think what's interesting is we know that things aren't going to go back to normal, right? And so how can we adapt and change our plans to where the consumer is, how technology is interfacing with sports and kind of our world now. And so I think really understanding how we can pivot on our strategies and really meet the needs of kind of the organizations as well as the consumer are really at the forefront.
Yeah, and typically, as you guys guide us, typically the content's a big part of that, right? And being able to share where AdventHealth layers in. Can you explain more about what type of content, why it's important, and how, as we take a step back and think about not having live events, and we're getting back to that hopefully soon, but we've all as properties become content-led organizations. How has your team looked at that strategy shift for teams like the Magic and potentially the Bucks and Lightning? And what is the discussion like? What are we trying to accomplish on content now?
Yeah, I mean, content becomes, we always knew content was important, but it becomes even more important. because people are on their mobile devices, their tablets, their computers all the time now, wanting the latest and the greatest. And you kind of want that behind the scenes feel, that look. How is AdventHealth helping the Magic bring basketball back to Central Florida? And so how can we develop that unique content? We're also looking at things like with NASCAR, where they've had some races without fans, and hospitality is a big part of almost probably every partner's portfolio. But we couldn't typically take people to the events. And so we've created virtual experiences where we've partnered to really create, based on your interests, JT, for example, what you like with NASCAR. And so we created a bespoke plan before the races, send VIP kits home so we can all view at the same time, log on, hear behind the scenes content, watch it together, but in a virtual environment.
Yeah, I love it. We keep talking and calling it work from home, that experience from home sports environment.
Exactly.
So we're starting to figure that out. It's incredible. So it's also, candidly challenging times, right? As you're a partner with a lot of the properties we have, the Lakeland Magic and the G League team will not continue this year. And we're looking towards next year. Same with the Solar Bears, the ECHL minor league hockey team. But with the NBA coming back, and you referenced that as part of the AdventHealth overall portfolio, there is hockey, there is NFL. So and to your point, racing, there's a lot that is starting now. How do you approach that? You mentioned, again, not having live sports, and we talked a little bit of the experience from home, but think about how brands are looking for opportunities to layer in. How do you view that from an AdventHealth perspective?
Yeah, I think we've kind of taken a step back and said, we don't have some of the traditional assets, but where can we partner together, maybe in a non-traditional way? And so is that something, I'm brainstorming here, but is that something in coronavirus where we come into the community together, the Magic and AdventHealth, to do something extraordinary? I don't always think it has to be within those traditional assets. And I think that's where the teams are realizing that we've got to be flexible. We've got to really relook at this together differently. It can't be one way. It's what can the partner do for the team, and what can the team do for the partner?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And go beyond the properties. You mentioned earlier your Run Disney relationship, and beyond that, Track Shack, and I'll call them just endurance events throughout Central Florida. You're very part of that. A little bit different than live spectator sports to an extent. What's been the conversation like on that side? Because you want those runners out there. They can't go out. We're canceling big events nationwide related to marathons. What's that conversation like right now?
Yeah, well, we've been doing a lot of virtual training programs, virtual races. And for people who live, who used to live in Central Florida, who now have moved, or people who just know Disney and the Run series or the Track Shack group, they participate around the country. And so this has been a booming area for us. And so it was a natural kind of flip as we entered into these, unusual times. What we love about the running and the endurance programs is it gets people out. So as we're all stuck at home, it allows people to get exercise. It allows them to, do something besides being at home. And get fresh air. So all those things that are core to who we are, and allowing people to feel whole and live their best life. But the races right now, we just had the Watermelon Run last weekend for 4th of July. It's an annual race, a lot of fun, a little different though, because everyone couldn't be together. But it was a virtual race, and people posted their virtual runs, and everybody got their medals delivered and their shirts. And there was a lot of unique content that was out there. So we have to adapt and modify our strategies.
And that is great. So it's safe to say, though, given that point and others you've made, there's still value in being part of sports as a partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's, again, almost flipping it on its head and saying, okay, how do we adapt our plans? Because you don't always want to just start over, but how do you adapt them to where the consumer is and where really your marketplace is?
Yeah, and I think something we share with your team, and we talk about a lot from the Magic perspective, and in sports in general, and I think the NBA especially has talked about feeling a sense of accountability or responsibility to play games because of the role sports play in our
Yeah.
daily lives and our ability to heal. Talk a little bit about that. What's your perspective on why it's important to have sports come back?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, as growing up a sports fan, I think it's imperative. It's part of our culture, it's part of our DNA, and so I think sports brings back some type of normal too, and it also allows an escapism from kind of what we've all been going through. So everyone's really eager. We've seen that as the PGA has been coming back. The anticipation around the NBA has been tremendous. I know we here at AdventHealth are counting the days until the Magic are on the court again, and are just looking forward to that. And I know the players are too.
Yeah, absolutely, and they are, and it's fun. And as you know, as we sit here today, I believe it's July 9th when this is recorded. Yeah. We've been on campus, if you will, at Disney for 2 days, and we're getting some feedback from the folks at the Magic that are there, and they're feeling pretty comfortable with how it's going, but eager and just hungry to get out there and play. So we're excited. And you mentioned golf and some other events that have gone before us, if you will, from more of a TV perspective, still no fans. And you're seeing the ratings and the engagement on social, and I think it backs up what we all thought, which is there is a craving to get back to sports, right?
Absolutely.
So looking ahead and kind of in closing, as we think about, where we've been, we've learned a lot now. We're starting to learn more about what partnership assets look like in the NFL, and for us, for the NBA, the NHL will start soon, and MLB, not to leave them out. So there's still a lot we're learning. There's not a lot of finality to this is where you stand. But if you can give advice to brands that are out there, folks that are sitting in your role at other companies, what would that be as if they're having to navigate what's their position in the restart of sports life?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big question. I think it's the right question everybody should be asking. I think it's how has your business changed, and how can you use that property to now propel kind of this new normal forward. So it is sitting down and it is retooling sometimes, some of those partnership assets. Obviously things have changed on the property level, but also in the business level. And so it's really truly is developing that relationship all along so that you can really come together to figure out where do we go and how can we make this a win-win for both parties. Right.
And so a similar maybe follow-up to that, it's very valuable for folks like me and our counterparts that might watch this. What's your advice for us as we try to navigate bringing partners like you and others value and trying to navigate it on our end?
Yeah, I think always asking, how can we help you? What's different? Help us, I think it's hard sometimes for you guys to understand our business. And so really probing and asking us questions. We also take for granted that you know our business. So, I think that really helps. That's a kind of a grounding force that allows you to really help us accelerate what we want to do together. Yeah. But bottom line is thinking differently. And it's not saying, here's our traditional assets and here's what we do. It's okay, hey, we have these, but we know we got to think differently. We've got to do some things differently. Like the virtual hospitality model, I think is an easy one because I think everyone can understand how that could come to fruition. But that isn't an easy turnkey thing. That does take work, and it takes both partners partnering together to create that content and to bring that to life.
That's well said. And not to, again, it's been a tough situation for everybody. There's a lot of folks going through some hardship, but all that said, and to build on your point, there's almost that excitement around the innovation that we can find and how do we make the best out of the situation. So we're looking forward to that. Well, I greatly appreciate it. We've taken a lot of your time. I know you got a lot going on. I can't thank you enough on behalf of the Magic for what you all do for us. You have helped us get back to basketball. Before we walked into the AdventHealth practice facility, you all were there helping us make sure we can get there. So really the start of the NBA for us doesn't happen without your all's advice and guidance. And I even see a Magic sign in the background. I'm sure it's there all the time. Yeah. It's not just for this call, right? It's always
absolutely there. Well, and I want to thank you for my Orlando Magic mask. So
there you go.
Tell everybody watching and do one thing: wear a mask and get an Orlando Magic mask.
Love that. Very, very cool. Well, Sharon, as always, it's painful not to see you all in person, but it's great to see you here. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you, JT. Really appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Take care.